Nate Saunders here with Unlapped. Liam Lawson joining us again. Liam, we spoke in December, just after the news had been announced that you're racing for Red Bull this season. You've had a few months for that to sink in now. How does it feel 3 months after the fact? You still haven't raced for Red Bull, so it must still feel a little bit the same, but you've dwelled on it a bit more. How does it feel?
Yeah, I think that's the thing is I've had so much time to think about it now that I'm ready to go, honestly. Every other year it's been either 12 hours notice or a week or two notice, So this is the first time I've had a proper pre-season or a proper off-season. And yeah, it's about time we go racing, to be honest.
And just on that, I mean, you must feel so much better prepared to that point, because last year you weren't really sure what was going to happen. It felt like maybe you were coming into that season thinking, I probably did enough to earn a seat for 24, didn't happen. This year you're coming in. Do you feel like a step ahead of where you were even 12 months ago with that in mind?
I mean, you're always moving forward and you're always developing and learning. So I think, yeah, I feel prepared for the season, but obviously I'm also well aware that, starting in Melbourne, China, Miami, all these races are tracks I've never done before. So I know it's going to be, especially the start of the year, it's going to be very, very tough. So I would say I'm as prepared as I can be for the start of the season.
And that Melbourne race is as close as you can get to a home race to kick off. It's pretty perfect. What are you expecting there? You got a lot of family coming in for that?
My parents are going to be there. And yeah, I think obviously being close to New Zealand, as much as I'd love to have a New Zealand Grand Prix, we maybe one day can have that, but for now Melbourne's the closest one. So to start the season there, it's also a race that I've gone to now for 3 years as a reserve. And it's just a cool place, a place that I've always wanted to race.
Yeah, and I mean, no pressure, but usually when a driver comes back from a place that hasn't had a racer for a while, it speeds up getting a race there. Like Colapinto now with Argentina, suddenly talking about Argentina race. So maybe by the end of the year, we're like, hey, when's the New Zealand Grand Prix coming?
We'd have to definitely make some adjustments to our tracks for it to be sort of accepted for FIA.
Is there any dream home circuit that you could think that could be
Highlands?
modified?
The South Island Highlands. It's my favourite track in the world.
Wow, okay.
So I think it would be crazy to race F1 there. I think we could totally make it work. But at the moment, it's a track that you get, like when we raced in the Toyota Racing Series, you get all four wheels off the ground across the bridge.
Wow, okay. I can see that being an issue with these cars.
I think in F1 you'd probably take off, but we could slow down that section and make it work.
But it's all about the spectacle. That would be great. So
it would be very cool as a fan.
Well, there you
go. It's a great circuit. It's in the middle of some amazing scenery as well.
Right.
And it's I'd love to have a Grand Prix there.
And just a final one before we talk about the season. What have you actually done? Obviously, you're training at the moment, but what have you done in the off season? Were you back home for a bit? Like, how did your time divide up?
Yeah, I went to New Zealand for a little bit and saw my family and caught up with some friends. But a lot more brief than other years. Just because of how early we start with pre-season. So. Yeah,
I suppose that's the flip side to what you were saying, right? You've had the preparation this year, but it means just less time at home. So it's that sacrifice that you guys always talk about having to make, right? You've had to kind of swing back into that this year.
For sure. As much as I'd love to spend more time in New Zealand, at the same time, when I was there, even the last couple of weeks I was there, I was just sort of getting ready to come back and feeling like I was ready to go. Honestly, as much as I love being at home, obviously going into a season like this, I just wanted to be prepared. So coming over nice and early was a good way to do that.
And just looking at this year, I know we haven't gone testing yet, and that will probably define a lot of the expectations, but how do you actually measure yourself going into a season like this, your first full year? A lot of drivers don't have to have their first full year in a team that has just won a Constructors' Championship, a Drivers' Championship in recent memory. How do you measure yourself this season, do you think? I
think I'm well aware of how, obviously, how fortunate I am to come into a team like this early, to have this opportunity. So for me, it's extremely exciting to go into a season like this. At the same time, I'm well aware of how much pressure that's going to come with and how hard that's going to be. As we said, especially starting the year at tracks that I haven't done before, and obviously having a teammate that's a 4-time world champion. And Max is going to be extremely tough, but at the same time, there's nobody really better for me to be learning off, for me to be alongside. So I think it comes with a great opportunity.
And it's probably the toughest driver to be teammates with, Max. Would you agree with that? I think your history would probably suggest that's true.
I think for sure it depends on how you look at it. I think he's the toughest guy to try and go in and beat. As much as we all want to win in Formula One, and that's what we're all here to do. For me, obviously, starting this year at these circuits and this sort of nature, for me, it's more about sort of taking those learnings and making the most of having somebody like that as a teammate and having access to everything that he's doing.
And I've seen a few, we even struggled with it because we weren't quite sure. A few places have articles about the rookies this year, and everyone seems to be tacking Liam Lawson on at the bottom of that just because it's your first full season, but you've obviously done 10 races over 2 years. Do you feel like a rookie officially? I know because it's a funny word because it suggests you haven't done anything. Maybe it has for some people it has a negative connotation. Do you feel like that at all, or do you feel that with the experience you've got, you've kind of maybe don't need to have that label attached to you?
I think walking around the paddock in Melbourne, no, I won't feel like a rookie, but driving out of the pit lane onto the track, yes, I'll probably feel like a rookie.
Right.
So it depends on how you look at it. Yeah,
important distinction, right?
It's obviously I've done a few races, and although compared to most, it's not very many. I've done enough races in Formula One to know how it works, and but obviously starting the season at these sort of tracks, it's going to feel very new, especially in a new team as well. New team, to be honest, I've actually been with the team quite a long time, and fortunately, it actually doesn't really feel like a new team because of the relationships that are there and have been there for quite a few years. But yeah, starting the season, it's going to feel, I think, quite new.
Yeah, and I did want to ask you about that because it's the only team that can do that and have a step up from a junior team up. You feel the benefits of that, just the fact that everything you're doing is now just magnified to the senior team.
Yeah, and I think at the same time, I was reserved for Red Bull for honestly a lot longer than I was reserved for VCARB. So over the years, especially the early years, I actually spent more time at Red Bull Racing, and that's sort of where all the relationships were built. And then I went to VCARB to race. But to be honest, I've spent a lot of time with the team, and it almost just felt like I was coming back.
Yeah. A few more questions, just digging into the life of an F1 driver. What have you got in your garage back home in terms of cars, bikes? I don't know if you're into your bikes. Like, what kind of things do you have back home? And I'm sure it's a collection you're going to be hopefully working on, I guess, over the next couple of years. But what's in there at the moment?
Yeah, I'd love to build it. At the moment, I have a Toyota Supra, which is very heavily modified. That's in the UK, about to be sent to New Zealand. And then in New Zealand, I have a Mitsubishi Evo 9.
Nice, okay.
Which is about to go through a full rebuild.
Okay, nice. And what's the inspiration behind the rebuild? Have you mapped this whole thing?
Just want it to be faster. Okay. It's because I did when I was in New Zealand over summer. It's already modified and it's already quite quick right now. It's probably running about 450 horsepower, something like that. But I did like this cruise, and Shane Van Gisbergen hosted it and brought his Sylvia out, which has also been modified. And we did a little rolling race, obviously under the speed limit. But we did a little rolling race, and he just edged me at the end of it. Yeah. So now I'm doing a full rebuild to basically
purely to beat
to beat it next year. Yeah. Nice. And we're not just going to beat him; we're going to smoke him. It's going to be we're building the car out to be like.
Does he know this? Does he know that you're?
No, he doesn't actually. So
gone to.
I probably shouldn't have said that now because now he's going to be aware. But
well, because he's got time to do the same with whatever he's driving.
I know, but I feel like we're doing a sequential gearbox and about 900 horsepower, so it's going to be serious.
And we're in this era of Formula 1 where there's so less testing. So stuff like that just must be so fun to be able to do and actually just drive when you're not kind of in the constraints of an F1 test weekend or race weekend or whatever. I think,
it depends on what type of person you are. For me, growing up in New Zealand and being around that sort of car culture a lot, it's something that I'm very passionate about and I enjoy. But I also know a lot of guys and a lot of drivers that don't enjoy that so much. So it depends on what you're into.
Yeah. And so where was it that you two are? Where's the rematch happening? Or is that all top secret?
Well, it's not really a rematch. He doesn't even know.
Oh, right.
I'm just building it
in your head.
In my head, it's happening. yeah, exactly. It's just in my head that basically, hopefully we'll do the same thing next year. And I wasn't going to tell him, but obviously I've just told you guys. So.
Oh, well, I'm so sorry. We've ruined the surprise.
No, it's so good. It's I think by the sort of how the car will look in a year's time, he'll have worked it out. But in New Zealand, it's just on like a little cruise around some roads.
Got you. And any dream car that you're like, absolutely have to get that at some point?
In America, I drive one of my favorite cars is the F-150 Raptor R. Yep. It's basically what I've been driving for the last 12 months in America. It's not mine, which is why I didn't add it to that list as much as I wish it was. And honestly, one day I'd love to have one of those and do a little bit of sort of building it out. But they're so much fun. They're 720 horsepower truck. That honestly, off a set of lights, it'll pretty much outdrag anything. It's quite funny.
And that's before you've modded it up.
And that's before you've modded it. Yeah, it's really cool. So stuff like that in America, I love, like trucks like that. You couldn't fit it in London here, but yeah, it's something that when you're there, it makes sense.
Yeah, I always think that in America, when you get even if you get a hire car, you think this would just not fit around some of these streets here.
Yeah. And
in terms of where you're based during the year, how often are you based here versus like when you go around the world? Whereabouts is home for you at the moment?
It's at the moment it's London. But honestly, with how much we travel, I spend a lot of time in America. So I probably flick between both. I'd spend a lot more time here, especially now being with the team, and at this part of the year. But obviously, then we start the season and we're at Melbourne, China. We have obviously the American race with Miami early in the season as well. So yeah, it depends on where we're racing.
And I've got to ask you this as a Kiwi: have you got used to the British weather yet, or is it still something that you just can't get your head around?
I've gotten used to it. I don't as much
that
as I don't like it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's funny because then you have like today earlier was really sunny and it was like, wow, this is incredible. But really, it's not. It's just incredible here.
Yeah. Everything's relative here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, but I've been here for 6 years now, so I'm pretty used to it.
And I think over here we're always very jealous. People from New Zealand, Australia, a lot of summer sports you guys play. This is where I haven't fully done the research, which I should have done. Anything any surfing or anything from your past? Was it always racing that was your?
People assume that I surf.
Yeah, I think it's a massive stereotype. So apologies.
Yeah, no.
I was like, he must surf or play rugby or something.
No, I played rugby when I was young, but I don't surf.
Okay.
As much as I'd like to.
Yeah,
I don't.
I suppose someone in New Zealand can't surf. Like, so, not everyone can do it.
And it's apparently me. Yeah, it's me.
Exactly.
I'm the guy.
And he just turns out to be an F1 driver.
I'm the guy who can't surf.
Yeah.
To be fair, I've only ever driven. I mean, I rode dirt bikes when I was younger, but other than that, I've just driven cars. Yeah. That's all I've really done.
Because your route into Formula 1 is fascinating. Can you just tell us a bit about, because your family had to give up quite a lot to get you to this point. Just explain a little bit how that came to be, because I think we've got a lot of listeners that it's very easy for people to assume our drivers just come in and they've had a lot of things handed to them and stuff like that. But what was your route into Formula 1?
Yeah, I'm extremely lucky to have been sort of to have parents like mine who sacrificed, and not even just my parents, my siblings as well. My family were very supportive, especially in the early years. Like, just go-kart racing was hard enough, honestly. And my parents sold their house when I was still racing in go-karts. And then when I stepped into sort of entry-level cars, it was through a scholarship program because we couldn't afford to buy a car. So I was lucky enough to do that scholarship and win it, race that season. And then from there on, it was having some incredible people that built sponsorship around me, and then sort of just grew into a group of people that were really keen to see a New Zealander get to Formula 1. And that's basically what's taken me all the way up. And then Red Bull, obviously, in those early years, was probably the other, was probably the biggest reason that we were able to make any of it happen. Because without them, I obviously would have never had the funds to be able to do it. So, just been, the timing of everything has been very lucky. But for me, those early years, especially with my parents sort of sacrificing everything that they had, it's for me to be able to compete. Yeah.
It means you're no stranger to that pressure either, because the pressure's always so high, but you've been dealing with it, for years and years. I guess it's never natural to have pressure, but you learn how to deal with it in different ways.
But that's where I think I was quite lucky with my parents, is they never put any pressure on me. And as much as I know now, looking back, if I'd crashed a car during a season or done something, we wouldn't have been able to race. Probably from then on, when I raced Formula Ford, we had one engine, and in New Zealand, Formula Fords, they blow up all the time, honestly. So, if I missed a gear or did anything, it was game over. But they never, ever, especially my dad, he never made me feel like he never put any pressure on me, to drive any differently, to say I've given up everything for you. You make sure you do a good job, or you make sure it was always just, if you, Liam, if you want to work hard enough, if you want to do something, then I'll do everything I can to make that happen. And that's sort of how my parents have always been.
And it must be so nice to see on the other end of that now that you've come into F1. I know that, so when we spoke in December, you pretty much had just made the call back home. Very emotional time. to be able to kind of reward everyone back home with that as well must just be such a nice feeling on top of that.
It's very cool. Yeah, it's very, very cool. And I think for all of us, it's still, for me, obviously now being here and getting into work, it's obviously becoming a lot more real. But I think for them back home, it won't be until Melbourne that, it's obviously real for everybody. And I think my family, but also just the whole country is excited for the season to start.
And again, I know this is before the season, before pre-season, so it's hard to say, but race win this year, do you think that that's achievable? I know that it's a car that won a lot of races last year, but can you even give yourself that mindset? Can you even give yourself expectations like that, or is that just an annoying question from a journalist like 6 weeks out from the season?
I think it's not something I'm putting a time frame on. I'm not going in and going, I need to win a race in this certain amount of races or this season necessarily, but my goal is very clear in Formula One, and that's to win. That's to win races, and that's to win a world championship as well. So that's obviously what I'm working towards, but there's no sort of time frame on when I'm expecting to do that. That's just what I'm working towards.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.